Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned in to Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands and 105.1 if you're tuned into us in Milton Keynes or Luton on Inspire FM. Or maybe Peterborough. There's a lot of areas that covers. Like Unity FM, there's vast areas that these radio stations cover. MashaAllah, they've been doing great work for many, many years indeed. And it's a privilege to be able to support them in that and doing this session each week with you called Parenting Hour. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi, and I really am privileged to be here. And I think we're all feeling really privileged today, actually, with the news that's come out from Turkey and the numbers creeping up to the thousands of people that are killed with two major earthquakes. SubhanAllah, we need to keep everybody in our du'as. We need to be sending as much charity as possible to the organizations that are collecting and helping out there on the grounds, that are trying so hard to reach people that are buried, reach the injured, give food, provide homes. It's really, really difficult. But it is those charities and those mosques that really come to light in times like this. And we're going to continue talking about that from our last week's session when a lot of you rang in, because I know you were ringing in about the role of mosques in raising children. And actually, here's a really good example internationally wise of how mosques and how Islamic organizations are coming together to help our brothers and sisters, and the role that is needed. It's so crucial, that role, to be able to help and support them. Of course, we know ourselves nationally as well. We've had their support in lockdown. We've had their support when people were unfortunately here dying from COVID, and they stepped up and, of course, helped all those burials. And again, when it came to giving vaccinations, it was the mosques and community organizations again stepped up. And with food bank now, with the situation we're in at the moment, again, it's the mosques and community centers that are there helping our communities. So we're very privileged to have that. And we would like to continue the conversation up locally, nationally, or locally in Birmingham, actually, because we've got some people again on the show from last week. Dr. Hafiz will be coming and joining us very shortly. And we've got Shabana here with me in the studio. And I know there was lots of questions last week I wanted to ask you, Shabana, but we didn't get time, but we will have time today. But just before we start, I do want to invite people to phone in on 0121 772 8892. 0121 772 8892. Maybe you want to share about your comments about your local masjid or community organizations and how they're supporting you, or how they could be better supporting you, or you might like to share something about what you're doing to help the people abroad. And I suppose especially in our mind at the moment is Turkey, after that devastating news a couple of days ago only, and what's happening there. So please do ring in the studio. It's not even a couple of days. It was yesterday, wasn't it? But it just feels much longer because I think because the numbers keep going up and up and up, I feel I'm listening to this for such a long time. But it was only yesterday, subhanAllah, that we had all the news of this. Woke up to very sad news yesterday morning indeed. And I have friends out there who are missing loved ones, who are missing families, who haven't been found yet. So there is a lot of people that are grieving and very anxious and need your du'as indeed, as well as your financial help and support, inshallah. Shabana, can I ask you to introduce yourself again? Because I know, like me, maybe some of our listeners might have forgotten about last week's show. And because of this traumatic news, I think we're brain numb at the moment as well. So can you just introduce yourself and explain who you are?
Assalamu alaikum everybody, Assalamu alaikum Kathleen. Thank you for having me on the show. My name is Shabana Parveen. I am a volunteer. I volunteer with my local masjid and I'm training to be a doula. And a lot of the work that I like to do at the masjid is centered around mothers and children and just enriching kind of the access to the masjid, inshallah. So that's the kind of work that we're looking to to improve and to do more of. And just wanted to say how alhamdulillah lucky we are right now, and that my heart goes out to everybody who's suffering or anyone who hasn't heard from their loved ones. May Allah just grant everyone strength. And it's always amazing how our community, and generally I feel like a lot of people around the world, they come together in situations like this, and it's just beautiful to see that we have that unity. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, we do. And I think that's, like we were talking about this last week, about trying to get the communities more involved in the mosque, because it's at times like this that we need people to know what to do, not to be able to wait and receive instructions and wait, but actually there is a program already set up. They know what to do. They can continue, because each minute is really important. And I'm sure you're really busy indeed, and you're volunteering in the mosque and collecting things, and maybe for the women and girls out there, not just food, but sanitary equipment and toiletries and shelter and all of this that the children need at this moment, and this takes some training to do. It's none of us can go into that just like this. It takes some training for mosques to be able to have those things prepared. Have you been involved in kind of any discussions, Shabana, before we start talking about the mothers and girls here in the UK? Like, have you been involved in some discussions within the mosque, within the Bahu Centre? I know you volunteered there.
Specifically regarding the Turkey?
No, not about Turkey, but any crisis, because we've had many crises over the years. It seems to be one crisis after the other. And I know our Muslim community, mashallah, are very generous, but about any crisis in general.
I was working with an NGO a few years ago before I became a full-time mother, and sanitation, like sanitary equipment for women and girls, is something that we've always looked into. In addition to that, we've had a lot of support for maternity care for Syrian mothers and people in refugee camps. So that was a really, really amazing project. And so there's always something ongoing. Once we find a need, once there's a need identified, something is developed in order to support women around the world, alhamdulillah. So there's always something, there's always some discussions, always something to help women and children and childbirth, because there was a lot of women who would struggle with natural labor, so we were helping to provide cesareans, which they wouldn't be able to otherwise afford, and milk for babies and clothing, etc. So there's always something.
There is indeed always something here, and there's always opportunities for our young people to volunteer in mosques and community centres to be able to learn these very important skills. And I would advise anybody listening in this evening to go on some first aid training to be able to use those skills for here when you're in the UK, because we know that some things I just heard of before I came on air, also of a relative of a friend of mine who passed away in her 40s today. Again, out of the blue. We just don't know when things will happen to any of us. And we should all have some first aid skills to be able to put in place, to be able to save a life, because we know if we save a life, one life, we save all humanity. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Can you tell us a little bit about your dueling journey indeed, and why you wanted to become a doula? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. My journey, I just want to first of all thank you, Kathleen, and Approachable Parenting for putting on this program, for 12 of us ladies from Birmingham to be able to join the training course. I think when I was about to go into labour with my third child a year and a half ago, I really, really wanted a doula, but I couldn't get access to one. And I think a lot of my reasons were because I could tell that this the NHS was struggling, like maternity care was struggling. And it's always like women, it doesn't matter if you're on your first child, third, fourth, how many children you have. Every pregnancy and every childbirth is different. And there's something different happening at each time in your life. So having a doula just adds that extra support and guidance that you may not otherwise be able to access. And that's why I think after that, because I couldn't access that service, I did decide that at some point in the future, I want to train to become a doula so I can be there to provide that service to somebody else, somebody who maybe, maybe there's a language barrier or they just need that extra support and guidance because they're for various different situations, because every pregnancy, every child, every mother is different. So that is the reason that I decided to join the course. And it's just been an absolutely amazing, beautiful journey so far. I just so much love for all the ladies who are also on the course. It's so nice to see that women are coming together for other families. It's not just for other women, it's for their families.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned families there. Do you support men, or where do men get their support? The dads.
At this moment in time, it's difficult to say because we're all so early in our journey. We haven't started actively doulaing. I know other doulas, like not from the Muslim community, and they help support the family as a whole. So I think that is something that we would have to look into, how we implement support for the dads, and what the support would be. There are so many things that the fathers need. Like we sometimes forget that it's their journey too.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yes, women may suffer from postnatal depression, but do the men have something similar too?
Mm-hmm.
So there's opening this door of becoming doulas, and having Muslim doulas in Birmingham is opening another door to figure out where, how, and in which, basically how we can support men in their journeys too, because it's equally their experience.
Great. It's great that you said that, and you brought up the topic, yes, of women. We know probably around about 20% of women go through postnatal depression, as high as that. But men is looking at about 5% of men have that. So we are going into a commercial break. Listeners, do join us after this commercial break, where we'll be bringing back in Dr. Ather, and we'll be talking more about the communities here in the UK, in Birmingham, in relation to the mosque and how the mosque can support them better. And we need all of your support in this. So please tune back into us after this commercial break. Assalamu alaikum.
Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands, and Inspire FM is on 101.5. Sorry, I'm forgetting my numbers today. 101.5. Welcome to everybody that's tuned in on Inspire FM also. I have two wonderful guests with me. They were here last week. You probably remember them, Dr. Ather and Sister Shabana, who are talking about mosques and what is happening in mosques and community centres, and what can happen in mosques and community centres. And you may remember when we first came on air today, we were talking about the importance of being involved with your mosque and community centre, so that if there was a crisis, and we've gone through a few crises here now in the UK recently with COVID and with hardships that's going on at the moment, and the mosque and community centres always step in. So it may be that you want something extra, or it may be that you want to volunteer and know more about it and how can you do this. Please do ring in on 0121 772 8892. We're just also reflect on what happened in Turkey, and we will ask the Sheikh to do a little dua before the end for those people in Turkey indeed, and for everybody that's missing friends, family at the moment out there, or have lost their homes, lost their whole livelihood, so that we can try and help and support them. And I know Britain is actually doing a lot, and our Islamic organizations are already out there on the ground doing their best, mashallah. So we are, mashallah, as a community doing well, I think, Sheikh. There is a lot of people, young people working in Islamic organizations, in mosques, in centers that are able to respond to disasters like this, that they have this passion to help others and put others before themselves. Would you agree with me?
Assalamu alaikum. I pray everyone is well. Certainly, I 100% agree with this sentiment. It's at times of calamity and anxiety, like we saw in the last few days with the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, that we see that the Prophet ﷺ prayed for the unity of this ummah, that they would always feel, when it comes to pain and anguish, like a human body, that if one part is affected, then everyone is affected. And deep down, I think that love and that mahabbah, which is translated in financial donations, volunteering time, it just really gives me faith in this otherwise very difficult and very sad time when we hear about tragedies like this. I also take a lot of comfort in the fact that all of the victims, the unfortunate victims in this earthquake, have been granted the rank of a shaheed, a martyr, the highest possible death for you and I. In the words of a messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, he explicitly mentioned that if someone dies because of a falling wall, then he is also considered as a shaheed. He has the great attributes which are linked with a shaheed on the day of Qiyamah. But I want the listeners to sympathize and do whatever they can to help the victims of this earthquake, but at the same time learn lessons about what we learn and what it says about the Muslim Ummah. And there's so many positives we can take from it.
Definitely, there is so many positives and so many lessons that we can learn ourselves, and how to be better people, how to support on the ground local organizations. I just heard before I came on air that in the first 24 hours, mashallah, Islamic Relief raised over £1 million to be able to help and support people. And there's people on the ground out there, I know, working already from yesterday. We're out there, mashallah, which is great. But it's great that the UK are able to do this. How do we in our mosques try and encourage young people to have that character, to have that personality, to be able to give back, to be able to want to give back to others, whether it is locally, in Birmingham, or nationally in the UK? It doesn't always have to be abroad. How do we nurture this?
I think there's two parts of it. One is the thinking of the youngsters, which perhaps needs adjusting. And then it's the behavior of theirs. Youngsters have to understand that historically, the masjid has always been the central hub of the community. Whatever happens in a community, it all comes back to the masjid. Whether someone's born, whether someone dies, whether someone's well, some good news in the community, some bad news in the community. The broadcast place was always the masjid. It was always a social center. It was always the place where people came to. So if our youngsters can understand that hasn't changed, the mosque is still there for our spiritual and social needs and physical needs. Then there is the behavior in terms of coming to the masjid and sitting with the imams, sitting with the stakeholders and offering their services. There's an equal amount of responsibility upon mosques, upon chairmen and imams to have their ears on the ground and give an opportunity to our youngsters to contribute to worthy causes. whether it's international, like we've seen with this earthquake, or whether it's in their direct community with food banks, with cleaning up, with addictions, with mental illness, with knife crime, and all of these kind of issues.
So important there. You're a mother, Shabana, indeed, and so you're living this and you're working with others. And I know your children is very young at the moment. Have they kind of picked up anything or a sense of anything at this age, even that of giving back, of helping others, of neighborly kindness and helping and supporting each other?
Yes, alhamdulillah, they're all under the age of 10. And they have, I think, because what we've done is we've tried to ensure that they're connected to the mosque from a very young age. So whenever there's an event, whether they will understand the event or not, we're still taking them, because of they don't speak the best of Urdu, but they still attend an event, even if it's Urdu, because it just gives them that connection to the masjid. And when they do see, on the news or when they see organization, whenever they see someone with a bucket, they're always asking to put in some money. If they don't have any of their own money with them, they say, "Oh, mommy, can you put some money in for me, and I'll give you my money jar," or something. And also, when they see people on the streets in the UK, it really upsets them a lot, and they're always asking what they can do. And I think all children do that. I think they see it and they want to help, because children are so innocent and so pure. So it's something that we can nurture in them. And I think just allowing children to just attend an event, just come with you to the masjid, is so important. Whether they understand what the event is about, it's just having that closeness. But at the same time, as masjids, there are many mosques doing so many, programs for young people. But I feel like we do need a lot more events for young people, so they know what the masjid is about. As Hafiz was saying, that it's a center. It's where everything comes back to, and that's what we need to continue to make it for them. And if the people at the masjid can't do it themselves, and there's loads of organizations they can work with, to put on events or to provide the services that they can't really do themselves, because they may not have the expertise within them. So there are so many things that we can do working together as communities with masjids and community organizations, and just volunteering a lot more. I think one of the issues that masjids face is that they don't have enough volunteers, but that's again a two-way thing. How do we bring volunteers in, and how what kind of events do they volunteer at? Are we appealing to them? So it's just such a broad spectrum, and we need to kind of find a balance for everybody as much as we can, inshallah.
Inshallah, a really good point about finding a balance and trying to get volunteers. How can we be better at that, Dr. Ather? How can we be a magnet and draw in our young people so that they want to volunteer, they want to give back, and then our families as well, because we know issues happen. So we need to be. Could we be better, do you think?
I think, holistically speaking, you also have to remember what has happened in the last 10 or 15 years. And that is the birth of the internet and the mobile phone and the smartphone. It's affected this whole dynamics of our relationship with the masjid fundamentally. And if we don't look at that, then we can't really answer the question that you posed to me. If you go back 15 years, especially our elder listeners, they'll appreciate this. If you wanted to know what the mosque timetable was for February, you'd have to make a visit to the mosque. That's the only way you'd find that information out. Today, you can get that online. If, for example, you had a question that you wanted answered from an Imam, 15 years ago, it would be a reason to come to the mosque. You don't need to do that anymore. Everyone's got an alim on speed dial. If you wanted to listen to a Islamic program, you'd have to come to the mosque. There's no other way around it. Now everybody says, well, it's been pre-recorded or it's live streamed, so I don't need to leave the comfort of my home. Now, over time, the services that the mosque provide has come to the people in their homes. But the Messenger, peace be upon him, said that man kharaja min baytihi, whosoever leaves his home to go to the mosque, then he's going to get a huge reward for every step, and his sins are going to be forgiven. And explicitly, he's saying that even if all of the services of the mosque come to you, there's still an inherent value of you going to the mosque. Now, to answer your question, we can do a lot, but we can't do it to an empty hall. And we're not blaming the youngsters. We're looking at the larger fabric of society where everything has become electronic. We don't talk anymore. We don't interact, where human interaction is at its lowest since human civilization. You know, the emoji has replaced the smile. The robots have replaced the checkout girl at the supermarket. So it's not a problem which is specific to Muslims. It's the nature of the world we're living in, post-smartphone, post-internet. It's affected every aspect of life, and certainly it has affected our job as imams and servants of our community.
You're so true there. You've brought me down memory lane there talking about this. It's so right. 15 years ago, we would have been walking to the mosque and or driving to the mosque maybe to get that prayer timetable. And now it just doesn't seem to be important. How can we turn, I don't want to turn back the clock, but turn back to the mosque, if I put it like that, turn back to the mosque?
The way around that, every single community and masjid has its own challenges. But one thing I think is clear is we have to target something at least for all age groups of society, even if it's a small amount, as long as it's regular. The Prophet ﷺ always talked about regular actions, even if they're a small amount. So if I don't know, for our elders, a mosque, if they could provide a warm bank, for example, during this very difficult winter, a place where they can read the paper and sit together and make a cup of tea. For our married population, couples and those with kids, I just wish there would be counseling sessions, private sessions that imams could give up their time to help in the mosque, give counseling and give guidance wherever possible. And then for the youngsters, look, I never shy away from this fact. I always tell my students this, is that if you look at my phone book in my phone, I haven't got a single friend going back to my day in primary school, secondary school, college or university. I've forgotten them all, and to be honest with you, I couldn't care less. But from that same period, all my friends from the masjid, from the Hafiz class, from Darul Uloom life, from Hajj and Umrah, they're still my friends today. Now, we just got to get the youngsters into the mosque and make friends with one another and use the masjid as a hub for bringing people together. And that can be over the most mundane things like PlayStation competitions, like boxing clubs, like which I know is happening in some mosques in Birmingham, in more deprived areas, watching a football game, an important football game together. Think outside the box. It doesn't strictly have to be religious. There's a lot of scope for other activities in our mosques. I think that's so important for our stakeholders in our mosque to really reflect, however it is, even if it's for food, for Wednesday night chips, for showing an Islamic documentary, a table tennis tournament. Our elders just have to get the youngsters into the mosque. And then we can tackle what we do and how we use their energy and what we can get them volunteering for.
Great advice there, mashallah, indeed, in getting our youngsters back into the mosque and our families and calling them stakeholders, because they are stakeholders, but maybe they don't often realize that they are a stakeholder there. And it is a benefit for them in in doing this. Lots of lovely ideas there in setting up these things. So listeners, maybe some of you already have done this, have set up some events like this in your local mosque, local communities, or maybe tonight listening to this program, you've got some ideas and you'd like to ring in and share with us. The number again is 0121 772 8892. Please do call in and share those ideas with us, because it is lovely to be able to do different things in the mosque. And while Sheikh was talking there a lot about, you know, boys and young children and men, what would you suggest, Shabana, for women and girls? What would they be interested in doing in coming to a mosque?
Women and girls, I think for women, it's just them being able to come out of the house, and whether you're a working mom or you're a full-time mom, just being out of the house and communicating with other women, and just sometimes you just need someone to listen to you. So just like, I know this is going to sound really cliched, but I think just coffee mornings or coffee afternoon or evening or just anything, discussions over food is so important for women, just because you just need to have like that wind down moment sometimes. For girls, it depends on what, you know, I don't know what I would say for girls, because would it be like something girly? I mean, all 5-year-old girls that I know have like the color pink. So, so something about arts and crafts, actually. Arts and crafts definitely is always a hit. I thought definitely, especially with girls and even with young boys. So I think definitely arts and crafts, something creative for young people, like the younger generation, because they like to keep their little fingers busy, and that's when they can get to know each other as well. And like, you'd be so surprised at how easily young people have a conversation with one another. They've just met and they just talk, and they talk about anything that relates to each other. So it's just a case of finding something and setting up a project for women and young children to go together. The children can be kept busy with their activities and, you know, tea and cakes. I mean, everybody loves cake. So you can't lose with that. So there are very, very many different things, and it depends on your masjid and the facilities, but just having a place where people can get together and have a conversation about life, about anything.
And like in times like this, I'm thinking if they had and boys and girls may like to do some knitting, may like to knit some blankets, things like this that would be quite easy to do, hats, scarves, that they can be done for the poor in our communities, the people that are suffering from the cold at the moment. And if there was large stocks, even be able to send them to disasters, and they have them ready there for this. So there's lots of opportunity to be able to help others and be able to gain rewards. But first, people need to come and think of this. And when there is events, because I know the mosques and the centres do put on events, and sometimes people don't turn up, and it is very frustrating when you've put a lot of energy and time into buying resources or putting cakes there, and people don't turn up and take part in these things. I wonder how could we kind of get to their compassionate side, and alaikum salam, and be able to help them in their compassionate side in encouraging them to take a more active part. I think in the background we can hear the studio manager there. Maybe somebody has phoned in and want to take part in at the moment in our discussion. I'm not too sure. A caller, yes, there is. There's a caller on the line. If you can put it through with the caller, please, Brother Isaac. Isaac.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sister, Can I just add a little bit to your very, very, very interesting and very, very important issue about, getting the community together or getting, the ummah together or, whatever concept we're looking at it from. I believe that we are so blessed that we have this rare, amazing building.
Sorry, brother, can you talk up a little bit? You started off on a very high volume, but now I can't hear you.
I'm still in the same place, so unless my connection isn't quite good there. Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you now well, yes, thank you. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, I was just saying that we are very fortunate. We've got a unique scenario where we have mosques which are youth centers, sports center. You've all touched on everything. There's not much to add to it, but what I would like to say is that if you really want to start from some direction, my understanding would be that the mosques need to get together, sit together, all the heads, and sit down and decide, what are the criteria that we should be looking at, and according to your circumstances, your environment, where the mosques are, which area you're in, you have your own, problems, issues and stuff like that, but you got to actually make the mosque an open door for the community to come, like a community center. You're not even looking at it as a mosque. You're looking at it like a community center. And that's where you would get more people in, but you got to have like a reception, which you've got to dedicate yourself as a mosque. So when people come in to do their salah or anything else, they can add their viewpoint and ideas and commitments.
Excellent idea, mashallah. And that's a really lovely idea. Do you know of any mosques in Birmingham that have a reception like this?
I believe the mosque, Highgate Mosque, used to do something very similar to what I'm trying to say, put across. But I just believe that generally, like the Imam speaking earlier, he's touched on some amazing things as well. But there's so many people out there who've got a lot to offer. But if you don't actually provide a platform and everybody just keeps talking about things all the time with great ideas and great, fantasies of what we should and shouldn't be doing or could be doing. Instead, they should, they are already there in the mosque. They come 5 times a day in the mosque. The Imams, they should get together and then maybe, they go home, they know their family, they've got family links with other people, the community, and they should start from there somewhere and create a platform and then, put it across like councils have all over the UK. The mosques are like a council, on behalf of the community.
Uh-huh.
So they should be able to, have a good idea what is going on out there, because they live amongst the community, and they should also be able to, do this as a basis to many more, blessings that could be achieved once we set this platform. And we should do it as a wholesome thing, not just one mosque, and they could be doing it for 10 years and nobody else is interested or even hear about it or willing to sacrifice their personal time for the community, and it's just like going to a mosque. Okay, you go to a mosque, but you can read at home, but you get more swab by going to the mosque, and we keep reference to, you're getting more credit for going to the mosque. It's beautiful, but it's about time we put something into action.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan, brother. We've got one action from this evening's show that we're going to ask all the mosques to come together to try and do something with this. And in the last 30 seconds, brother, if you can do some dua for us, brother Dr. Hafiz, as we say goodbye to our listeners this evening.
الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Oh Allah, grant the lofty status of a shaheed for all of the victims of the earthquake. Oh Allah, give sabr to all of those who was caught up in this earthquake. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.